Welcome, Immortalites, to another round of the conversations. Today I have Justin Fox, the owner of Zen Garage, an avid gamer and graphic designer, car collector still. Do you still collect cars?
No, I don't. No, I don't. I think I've well and truly moved on.
Yeah, because
Um,
I was watching some, like I mentioned just before, I was watching some of your old YouTube stuff, and you've got kudos first for putting stuff online like 8 years ago. That's ahead of the curve. But yeah, just seeing the sort of progression of like the topics that you go through over the time has been pretty fascinating as well. And we're just saying,
yeah.
it's really good to just have a backlog of like a blog, for example, for you of just being able to be like, oh yeah, I talked about that a while ago. That's a handy thing to have.
Yeah, I've always been the type of person to keep a diary. Like ever since high school, I would write in a diary every night, handwritten, and I could barely read my own writing because I'm left-handed and always had an issue with legibility and smudging your ink
Yeah,
and stuff
yeah.
like that. But I think I was a really emotional kid in high school, and it just helped for me to get shit out, I suppose, by keeping a diary. And you probably know what relationships are like in high school when you're learning how to fall in love with someone. You get obsessed and you get heartbroken really easily. And I would write like how I was feeling and all that kind of stuff. So I think documenting my life has always been a thing for me, cathartic thing, I suppose.
Yeah. Have you ever gone back and really found something like, I don't know, revelating? Like you look at something, you're like, oh, I can't believe I used to think that. Or, man, that's a surprise. I didn't even know that was swelling in my brain back then.
Yeah, it's a tough one. I think when I read stuff that I've written, I cringe a little bit. I think I can clearly see what I was trying to say, but I don't like how I was trying to say things. I think I'm a better writer now than ever. But in terms of going back and reading stuff, I prefer to look at images. So I think I'm a really visual person. So um, I once spent a whole year of my graphic design graduating course designing my own brief, which was to design a memory container. And what I did was took the 3 years of diaries that I wrote in high school, but then illustrated them. And so the idea was rather than having to read these stacks of letters that I'd written to myself, I would read them, convert them into an artwork, and then by looking at the artwork, it would trigger the memories of what I wrote. So it was like a visual diary, I suppose, quite
Yeah.
literally. So I suppose I hated my writing so much that I wanted to convert it into
Develop your
imagery because that's
artistic skills.
yeah, I was better at art than writing. So I literally had 100-page hardbound book, which was just all images, and by flicking through that, I would remember things, but without having to read. Um, and I think as a kid, probably we were all like that. Like, my dad had a shit ton of automotive magazines, and I wouldn't read a single thing. I would just every day pick a new magazine out and flick through it from back to front and just look at images. And for some reason in my head, I thought that there were new images being added to these magazines every time I flicked through them, but it's because I never systematically went through a magazine from start to end. So I
Yeah,
would
I
just sit
gotcha.
there and never get bored of these same magazines because I would flick through them in a different way and find something that I hadn't seen before. So, and comic books too, obviously. Super into comic books and hardly even read them too because I could see what was going on in the imagery.
Yeah, yeah,
So,
that's real interesting that the order that you put things in is sort of almost how it shapes the experience of it. I had a little experience yesterday where I typically go out when I go out to handstands. I've started putting music on, and so I'll take like a little boom box with me and chuck on some music. And I've really been into the band Zoo lately, ZHU. It's like
yeah.
a French. I don't know how to describe their style. Sort of like
I
little
love
bit
it, man. It's
techno.
sort of that. It's dark electro kind of. Uh, it reminds me of when you're coming home, smashed at 4 in the morning.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
Perfect for handstands, man.
it's like in the zone and kind of eerie. But yeah, I like Zoo. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I know
yeah.
what you're
So
talking about.
typically I'll just, press an album and just let it play through.
Yep.
And I sort of, half the reason I do that is to like respect the artist as well a little bit. They typically put things in an order for a reason. So,
Dude, I'm so with you on that.
yeah,
I'm so happy we're talking about this. I'm so happy you brought that up because I think that's so lost these days in how people cherry pick. And, we always knew there was always that one song on the album that becomes the single because it's probably the most catchy song. And I get that. But you're so bang on. Like, when I was in a band, we would sit there and labor over the order of the songs. And you'd fight even with your bandmates about, no, this song should come before this one. And you're so right. And sometimes it tells a journey as well, like a story,
There's an interesting one because I've never particularly thought about it, but mostly because I've never been like a musician. Do you, if you're creating music, do you sort of create it with the previous song in mind, or do you try and create standalone pieces and then sort of post hoc meld them together into something a bit more cohesive?
Yeah, I think I don't know I don't know if every artist works the same way, but I think generally speaking, you always have a little 4-track recorder, or this is what we used to use back in the day, and you'd have a little 4-track recorder, and songs would come to you when you're just mucking around, bits of songs, and they only become songs when you play it to another band member. That's what I find. Like you can write something on your own, but the magic really happens when I'd be like, hey, Shazza, listen to this. And he'd be like, instantly just start drumming something out. And it's like, bam, there's something there. Or Aaron, my bass player, would do something completely melodic over something really heavy that I would do. And then you would have this, I suppose, juxtaposition that somehow works together. Something that you could not have created on your own. So I find that you might know, like when some artists die, their parents or their record label will release a sketches album where it's just a whole lot of unfinished songs. And I find that quite disrespectful, to be honest, because you don't put any effort into recording these things. It's a sketch. It's literally, you just got a little bit of an idea. It's not meant to be heard. It's not meant to be judged. It's like same thing with, I think, when I'm trying to come up with an artwork or starting a new graphic design job, I'm always that guy in a studio that has my back to the wall, because I hate it when I've worked for some agencies where they have that central floating desk system where everyone's in the middle, so the boss can come out and just make sure everyone's working.
Yeah.
I fucking hate that, because there'll be some, I don't know, a secretary or someone going to make a coffee, and they'll go past my screen and go, "Oh, that looks." Shut the fuck up! Don't you dare say anything. This is in progress. You need to nurture that, but you need to feel creatively free to try something bad and ugly before it gets good.
Yeah.
So I hate that when that process gets disturbed, and same thing with unfinished songs and stuff like that. And long way to answer your question, but yeah, I do think that it comes from like sketches, and I don't think artists have a whole album in mind per se.
You triggered some thoughts on there's plenty of books that are created, I guess, or published after an author's death, and it's always fascinating hearing that it was published against his wishes as well. So they would say like to their spouse, like, burn all of these things, please. Like I don't want any of this published. And it's a hard one because typically they're like a fantastic writer, usually like that's why you hear about it. And it provides an insight into their mind somewhat, or it's like a unique it's definitely something new and unique, but they didn't want it out there as well. And I don't know what to think of that, because it's, there's some amazing books that are out there, and you're just like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm glad this exists. But if the author had their way, it would have all gone into the fire. Like, how do you?
Yeah.
I don't know which side to jump on with that. Like, which is better and which is not.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think like Jeff, I'm a huge Jeff Buckley fan, and they released sketches, and some of the stuff he's just screaming, and he's doing it on purpose. Like he's not singing it properly. He's just jotting it down. He's just like, "Ah." And they release it. I'm like, oh man, how dare you? Like, I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it. But yeah, I don't know. I bought it as well. So
Yeah, gotta shit.
But
Yeah,
I love
that's
what you're saying about like respecting the artist. I think I think that's really lost on a lot of people to buy an album to play it from start to end. That whole romantic concept of spending your hard-earned money that you earned, like packing shelves at Woolies or something, and going into the city every weekend to go to Utopia and Red Eye Records, and to go to these like alternative record shops, as well as the humongous like Virgin Megastore and what was the other one? I forget. Brashes, and they were really big. They were really big CD stores that were multi-levels big, and you would sit there and put your headphones on and juggle CDs and find something you like, and when you bought it was so romantic to take it home, put it on, and zone out and just check out the album art, unfold it, hope that there's like a multi-fold out thing so that you can have something to look at and read some stuff. And like, I think that it's kind of like probably what you get out of reading books. It's this tactile experience, and it's not just the best ofs and like how you watch YouTube, they'll just take out 15 minutes or 10 minutes of a whole MasterChef episode or something, and they split one whole episode into 10 little sections, just these little morsels. Or
Yeah.
you probably also know when you post your podcasts up in front of your online and your mates or whatever, will be just like 3 fucking hours. Fuck that. And it's really commonplace. It's like, TLDR or
Yeah.
too long didn't watch or something.
Yeah.
It's longer
Yeah.
than 5 minutes.
Yeah, and that's everywhere as well. My brother likes to watch Premier League matches, and they've got the full match, the mini match, which is sort of 20 minutes, and then there's the like the highlights, which are or the goals, which are like 3 minutes. So it's I mean it's nice that the options are there, but yes, there's something is a little bit lost. I want to sort of stay with the music industry, because I'm becoming more aware of that as I'm diving more into like podcasting, funnily enough, because Spotify is like the big music player, I guess, for smaller artists, and yet it is like such a shit model. Like, it's unbelievable how much they rip off the smaller artists. And it's kind of cool. Like, I'm starting to see, and you could sort of understand it maybe back in the day where the big public, or like to record a song, you needed to have like a full studio and whatnot. But it's almost like we all have the tools nowadays. If you want to, you can create pretty decent music off of a laptop and whatnot. And so now it's all just like the control of the actual marketing of it. Like, where does this song get to be played on the radio or not? Does this song get to reach this certain audience or like get promoted and things like that? So yeah, there's some kind of cool models coming out there where it's like you you could maybe like pay for the song as you're watching, like the dream of the internet back in the day, which was the micropayments. So, every time you click on a blog post, that's maybe like a tenth of a cent or something like that, a
Like the
very,
royalty thing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
like royalties, right? Like
yeah.
if your music gets played on radio, you get 10 cents every time or something.
Yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll be interested to see how did you ever publish any music with your band? Did you ever?
No. Spent money to record at a place in Newtown that other cool bands that were emerging had recorded at, and we hired the same technical recording. I forget what their name is, a director or something, a technician that recorded a few bands that we liked. And with our second album, we spent big bucks on recording the drums where Silverchair recorded their first album. So it's kind of like,
Cool.
okay, this recording studio, it was fucking amazing. And but we never finished it. And I suppose we got to a stage where we were coming second in band comps. We came second in the Sydney Uni band comp, and we just couldn't do it. I was just got to a phase where, fuck, are you gonna let go of your dreams and study I studied a design course and thought, fuck it, I'm just gonna make some money and have a safer career here. And so I think we all kind of split up at some point and just realized that, okay, we've tried for quite a few years, and I think for us anyway, it was about trying to be a household name. So, like Regurgitator, you and I brought that name up, and yeah, sure, they're not around anymore or whatever, but to get to that point where you're like a Australian household name,
Yeah,
that Killing Heidi, or a band that someone has heard of before. But it's really weird. Like, at the same time, being a kid of the 80s, I always admired one-hit wonders as well, like the Proclaimers with the Yadalata song, and
yeah, yeah.
all Black Box, and I don't know, all these people, and Snap and stuff that just did these I don't know, I suppose every weekend I would watch Rage, which is all the hardcore shit, but then I'd also watch Rage until the morning, where you'd have your commercial top hits, and you'd always be curious to see who would make it to the top 10. And sometimes your favorite bands did, like Faith No More's Epic got to number 1 on the charts, which was fucking blew my mind, And you'd catch up with your relos or something. They'd be like, "Oh, so what are you listening to right now?" I'm like, "Oh fuck, my favorite band's the number 1." They're like, "Oh fuck, that song, I fucking hate that song." but I just think I think with a lot of bands, you just want to be that household name. Like, I don't think people chase the money. I don't think artists necessarily chase money primarily. I think you just love what you do so much, and your friends love it, and you get to a point where, I suppose, as an artist, you must publish and you must share your shit, and it must be scrutinized, and you try your best to get it out there. That's it. So I think when you're talking about the music industry, there are a ton of documentaries on the boy bands and all of that stuff, how everyone got ripped off. All the rock bands, everyone throughout history has been ripped off by the music industry. Yes, they got out there. Yes, they got to play huge arenas and tours, and they got travel overseas and do their thing. And at some point, I suppose artists started to not be happy with that.
Yeah. Do you think it's because it feels to me like it's sort of like a vicious cycle, in that the truly unique artist is going to be one that doesn't, like, you're right, doesn't care about the money or the fame or things like that. But that sort of makes them unaware that they're going to get fucked over if they're not wary of, like, signing this contract. It's sort of like, I don't really give a shit, whatever. Just leave me in peace, give me enough money so that I can, spend the next 5 years of my life recording and doing these cool things. And that it's sort of like that unawareness is what eventually catches up to them when they are mega famous, and it's like, oh shit, like I'm I'm really getting screwed over here. Like I'm putting in all this effort and yet seeing not not seeing the monetary side of things, which you sort of it's hard because you don't want the money, but at the same time, like money is crucial for life. Like you can't be ignorant of money, otherwise you're gonna be out in the street or have so many problems and whatnot. It's sort of I feel like podcasting is similar in a way. The best podcasters aren't the ones that care about money, but if you don't think about it, you'll get screwed over if you're not careful about it as well.
I think you said the word contract, and I think that is probably what changes everything. Because I think as an artist, that word is probably really foreign to a lot of artists. Like that doesn't come into, when you're creating something, you're not thinking about forms and contracts and business and money and stuff. You're creating because of a need to express yourself, a need to get something out, or something political to say, whatever. But you're using your something very personal to create something that's not only self-satisfying but potentially might inspire other people or whatever, like something like that. And you're right, when it becomes a business, and business is such a dirty word to me, but I know it isn't, but it to me it's like it really changes. It's almost like yeah, you're right. An artist a band or whatever can potentially get swept off their feet. And if you're touring, for example, just say you wrote a song about someone dying, or Eric Clapton, for example, he wrote a song about Tears in Heaven about his son dying, right? And he did a world tour one year where it wasn't Eric Clapton, it was Eric Clapton and his friends that toured. And his concept was to just have fun and do guitar solos for like 20 minutes long guitar solos, and then just hand it over to his buddy to the next song, and his mate would just do guitar solos. And I went to that concert with my mum, right? Because she's a Clapton fan, and all the oldies were there, and they were screaming out,
song names,
Tears in Heaven, Tears in Heaven. And he was just like, fuck you guys, I'm not fucking playing that. I'm having fun here.
Yeah.
And then people started to get really mad, and they were like, Layla. He didn't play a single song. He just jammed all night.
Yeah.
And I thought that was fucking brilliant, but people hated it. And another analogy, another thing that happens is someone, writes a really beautiful song, like just say Nirvana or any of these bands that came from nothing, right? You write something, or Smashing Pumpkins, whatever, you write something super depressing, but then when you play it, because you're expected to play it, because you have to, because it's probably in your contract, all the teenage girls in the audience will put a lighter up, and everyone's putting a lighter up, but they're all smiling and they're all happy. And it's like, fuck, I can't do this. I can't pretend. I can't play this song because I have to. I can't play this song and be happy, happily do 3 encores. And I suppose that it becomes a real problem for a lot of artists, and having to tour and play the same emotional songs over and over again every night in a foreign country must be really tiring.
I think it must be the really small things that would irk you as well. I'd usually chuck on the radio when I have a drive that is like 5 minutes or less. Otherwise, I'll put on something that's maybe a podcast or like a language learning thing or something. And you hear the intros that the artists have to do, like Ed Sheeran or something. He's like, I'm on B105 and this is blah, blah, blah. And
that's contract stuff.
Yeah, it makes me think, man, how much of your soul does that rip out each time? Because he doesn't know who B105 is. He doesn't care. But yet, how many times has he had to, how many radio stations are there in the world? Jeez, it's got to be like hundreds. He must have said that same line or a variation of that so many times.
It's comedians and late night shows, and they want to do skits with you. I think in Australia they got him to surprise a couple at their wedding, and he played in front of them live. And He didn't know these people. He didn't know the radio station. He doesn't know this country. And yeah, I think it's up to each individual, I suppose, in life to decide how much sacrifice and what's the word I'm looking for?
I think I can't remember where I heard this the other day. It was probably listening to you, but it was like putting up with the bullshit. It's like um, there's a certain like amount of bullshit that you just have to endure, and it's like you got to choose what type of bullshit it is, whether it's you know, office politics at work, whether it's the
Yeah.
bullshit of, you know, government regulations, whether it's the bullshit of you know, not having so much money, so you have to scramble to get things together. It's like you just have to choose which game you're playing.
Yeah, I think it shifts over time, right? Like our values shift and stuff. But for me, compromise has never really been great. Like I've never. It's because for me, it's because I have to live with it. Like just say I'm working in graphic design. If I design, you know, if I put on my tunes, like I'll put on Zoo or whatever, right? I'll put on something that I fucking found that, and I like it because it does something to me. So I go and put that on at midnight and start working on this job. And it's not about the money or whatever. This is what I do for a profession, right? So, but then I get in the zone on it. This is fucking my music, and I'm into this, and I'm putting everything that I have into this logo design or something, and I'm shifting letters around like a motherfucker for 3 hours. Next thing you know, it's 4 in the morning, right? And then you hand it over to the client at 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, and then the feedback you get is like, oh yeah, you know, Joe in the office here doesn't like the letter R in it, and Alice thinks the green doesn't quite work. It clashes a bit with the yellow, and you're sitting there and you're going, fuck, like I went into the zone for you guys. Like you're paying me because I'm the one who spent 4 years in a university course and then 4 more years getting good, and now I've got my own agency, and you're telling me that everyone in the office has chipped in and everyone's suggesting a change. And I'm like, fuck this, fuck this. Like it's a communication breakdown. I didn't ask you to send an email out to everyone in the office saying, hey everyone, here's the new logo the designer sent through. What does everyone think?
Yeah.
And that just fucked everything. So it's compromise is really difficult, because in the end of the day, when I make those changes and then the client's happy, they're long gone, man. 5 years down the track, 10 years, I don't even remember who they are. Have never spoken to them ever again in my life. But I still remember that, oh my God, that logo was so much better before they fucked with it.
Yeah.
So I have to live with it forever. And
it's imprinted on your brain. Yeah, for sure.
It's my problem. Like, and that's the thing, like, chances are when you hand over a logo to a company, and, once I was at a car meet and I did some work for this dude who was running like insurance, like automotive insurance or something. And, I think 4 or 5 years after I did the work for him, which he bargained me down to, because he's like, fuck, I don't know who the fuck you are. And because I was so egotistical back then, he's like, sorry, dude, I don't know who you are, so I can't afford that. And we bargained it down, whatever. And I did it for him anyway, because it was car related, right? And he came to one of my car meets and he said, dude, check this out. And he was showing me this huge fucking watch on his wrist. And I'm like, yeah, what? He goes, do you know what this is? This costs like $500,000, man.
Jeez.
I'm like, what the fuck? And he goes, I just want to thank you so much for all the work you did like a few years ago. Like, we've hit the big time. Like, I'm fucking making millions. I'm like, well, fuck you, pay me, because you paid me nothing 4 years ago. And so that's another weird thing too,
Yeah.
Like when you see your work splattered all over town and stuff, and you're like, shit, I got $1,000 for that. But that poster on the bus shelter alone probably cost $5,000.
Yeah.
So it's really life is weird in that, like, you could be seen as being successful. Other designers are jealous of you or happy for you that, oh my God, you did that job. great and all that stuff, and you're patting yourself on the back for that. But then when you hop out of it and see it from, it seems like as we grow older, there's more and more higher places to look down at yourself up from, and you see things and you keep readjusting and you keep seeing your successes in different lights. So back onto the music thing, it's like where you all of a sudden have a record label, you're touring Japan or whatever. It could have been your dream, but then when you get there, you have to pull yourself out again and go, oh shit, you're right. Maybe I'm being used here. Maybe I'm being taken advantage of. And it's funny how we always constantly have to reassess our successes in life. And
Yeah.
sometimes it's not a success at all. It's actually like, oh my God, I hate this. Yeah, it's really weird.
Yeah, and that's a really tough bit because you have to have the mental capability to switch. The yeah, one thing I just really like, if I had one thing that I could just wish that continues on until my old age, is just being able to like sometimes be okay with something that I used to think or value or whatnot, just changing. Like just be like, all right, I thought I loved soccer for 60 years, but I'm really sick of this. Like I don't want to watch it anymore. Like, okay,
Yeah.
let's fill that time up with something else. I did want to ask you as well. Would you ever have any clients who would sort of just accept your work off the bat? And
Yeah.
because you were telling the story recently about the food produce that your friend was doing, and
Yep.
it's a small company. He's like almost doing it by himself. You send him a
Hmm.
design, and still someone comes up with
Yeah.
some input and wants to change it. It's like, damn it, you can't win even with your friends. It's still there's still someone else who wants to chip in.
Yeah. And I think that's just the way it works, and I think gotten to a point where now it's like take it or leave it. So it's okay. I suppose I got to preempt it by saying that from the start,
Mm.
rather than like not saying it and then getting upset about it later.
That's sort of like the Eric Clapton. Like as long as he sort of said like, "Hey, this is not the normal concert. Like I'm not going to play
Yeah.
the standard songs." Then if
Yeah.
people go there, it's sort of like, well, you should have known. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just a tough one, man, because I think throughout life, like, um, a lot of people try to get money from doing something that's related to what they love. Like, but at the same time, I have enough knowledge from friends and people that I've come across that have tried that ended up hating what they loved, right? It's pretty common knowledge. Like a mechanic was so into cars and their hands are so fucking broken from working on everybody else's cars that they don't even have a car of their own because they just hate cars because all they do is fix cars all day, other people's cars. And it's the same thing with design. A lot of artists end up doing graphic design, but you end up being part of this corporate culture, and you realize eventually that maybe your artistic energy is lower than ever after years in graphic design. And so I think what I'm hearing from some of my closest friends is, fuck, I think I just want to get a job. I just want to get a job at like a cafe and just serve coffee or something, and just not use any of the talents and skills that I've developed over the years that are really passionate to me and important to me, and just get a job for money, like go back to packing shelves again or something like
Mm.
that, and like I think it's happening. A lot of people seem to be going there and starting to get disillusioned with having that dream job. You know?
Yeah, sort of separating, like really separating out the passions from what separating out the passion and money, I guess. Because yeah, I've met some people like that as well who really love architecture or at least certain parts of it, and then they'll go into the actual workforce and realize, I'm not actually doing that much architecture. I'm doing
It's
more
tough, yeah.
more bullshit related to the same thing, office politics, the random crap that you have to put up with from a shitty boss or people you don't like. Yeah, I think there is something to be said about just going, working in a cafe where even if everyone there hates it, it's like you all sort of hate it together. It's sort of like an acknowledgement of it.
Yeah, it's a smaller community. It's like you end up making friends and stuff like that, and you have a story to tell too. You have a really interesting story because you've just decided to back out of doing what you've always dreamt of, and you become an interesting person within that little community there. So sometimes that's a really good feeling. I think for so many of us, we try to influence more and more people. Like we call it the mainstream, right? So you're working in a big city and it's the mainstream, but deep down you're a hippie. You want to escape and you want to get off the stream and maybe move to nature somewhere. But then you're like, fuck, if I was out in nature, there's probably only like 5 people I can influence. So I'm really far off the mainstream. So I think we all go to the big smog, the big lights, and try our best to, inflate and get as big as possible and reach as many people as possible. Whatever it is you're into, you try your best until you get disillusioned at some point, maybe. But I think it's it's like that full circle thing. I think also, when you were in high school, some kids, there's always going to be some kid in the bedroom that's creating the best shit ever, right? And it's like they should be focusing on their studies and school, but actually this unspent energy is used on something that's passion related, and they're creating something fucking amazing, but they're still also going to school, but school is completely separate. So that's the same analogy for an artist who decides to stay at home and make music and paint, but then to pay for that passion, they go and get a job at a cafe instead. Just fucking disconnect.
Yeah, it's almost like it's almost like being truthful in a way, or you're acknowledging the fact that you're not like, you're just really aware of what it actually is. So the person in the job where they think they should be loving it, it's like, man, this is my dream job, I should be loving it, but they're actually unhappy with it, or they're not finding as much meaning as they thought they would, or it's changed over time, or things like that and then trying to pretend. I think it's like that reality distortion of trying to pretend it's all good when it's like, it's not ideal. There are things you wish it was different. And then having to decide, okay, do I put up with that, or do I go and do something else?
Yeah, it's really tough, man. And I think, and I don't like, I think at different ages too, and different levels of experience, I think everyone has had this happen to them where they've met someone that is wiser and older and more experienced, that just drops a fucking F-bomb on you, just drops a huge bomb on you and asks you a life question that you weren't ready to answer yet. Like I remembered when I was really young and just about to go into university to study design, I met this weird dude at a party, and I was trying to explain to him how excited I was to start learning graphic design. And he was like, don't you feel like you're just like a rat on a wheel? And, that you would just be doing advertising. And he said it to me way before I started saying this shit and feeling this way. But I was about to go into university. I got accepted. I was excited, But I clearly remember I was sitting in the corner with some weird dude, and he was a nurse, and he felt really good about being a nurse, about contributing to society in a positive way. And I just thought it was weird, and I thought, like, who the fuck are you? Whatever. But like, it came back in memory that happened. And also another weird dude that I met, it was a good friend of mine's boyfriend, who was a lot older, and he came over to my house and he brought a bag of cocaine and was snorting cocaine and got high, and everything was fun and stuff. And then he just said to me, like, so, what do you want out of life? And what's the end goal? And stuff like that. I wasn't fucking ready to answer that, man. I just started my first design studio. I was making heaps of money. I was loving it. But he was out there, and it was just a question I couldn't answer. So I think sometimes you think you're at the top of your game, and we all have an ego. It's like, whether you're in competition with yourself or others, like I'm sure you feel proud when you read a book a week or a book a day, and you're absorbing this stuff and you're getting it, and it makes you feel good, right? You feel really good about yourself. And so
Yeah.
we have this ego that you got to feed, right? We have this like, it doesn't feel good when you're just not achieving anything. So when you achieve something, doesn't matter what the fuck it is, it feels good, right? But then every now and then, I suppose, yeah, you meet someone or you come across a wall where it's kind of like, well, it almost forces you to devalue what you value just so that you can cut down that ego and confidence, because you worked so hard to get good at something. And when you got good at it, you became confident, and that carries you through life. Because when you have confidence, you have this, I got the skills to pay the bills. Fucking nothing is going to hurt me. And it feels really good. But at the same time, you're so scared of not having that confidence anymore that you don't even try things out of your comfort zone anymore, because you just know what pays the bills.
Yeah. Next thing you know, you're playing video games 10 hours a day, and like not even.
Which is me. And it's like there is no sense of achievement there, but I'm like, fuck, it's okay. It's okay. It's like I don't have to. It's like I'm just trying to cut down that self-importance and that ego, and it's like it's a really tough one, because I do feel sorry for people who don't know what it is that they're into. You know, some people that I've gone to design lectures, and some of the students have asked at the end, how are you so into graphic design? I don't understand. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I answer that? Like,
Yeah.
you either are you or you aren't, you know, like I can't tell you how to get into something, to find something to obsess about. And I do feel sorry for people who don't have a hobby or don't have any passion, or they feel like they don't. But it's also very easy to get really good at something, to gain the confidence. So it's not attitude anymore. It's real confidence, and everyone thinks that's the fucking be all and end all. But it's not. It's not, because it's actually more fascinating when you're learning. Like, that's what you're doing. You're reading so much, you're learning. It's actually more humbling to say, I'm not good at it yet, and that you're learning to get good. And it's so addicting, and you can't put it down, and you're getting better and better and better. But then once you've actually gotten good, I find like it's a very scary place to be. I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's a weird place to be. It's like that ego and self-importance and confidence might not necessarily do you favors. And like you said, you could be into soccer for like your whole life until you realize, like, actually, I don't think it's that important anymore. And you know, like with cars, it's like that with me. All these guys are like, when are you going to take that race car out again? I'm like, I don't even think about it. Like,
I suppose, like, on this topic, have you ever thought of yourself as like, I'm the car guy, or I'm the graphic designer guy, or something like that? Because I think that might be why you've been able to sort of transition so much between like different, musicians. You've done so many things, and we should get into that soon. But I think that's a really healthy thing. Yeah.
I think that's what other people do, right? Other people pigeonhole you, right? Because it's easier for them, you know? And I've gotten to a point where when I do get invited to speak somewhere, and they like, it's like you had a hard time in the beginning to say, I don't know, this guy's Zen Garage or Cars or whatever. And it's just like, man, I understand. I always just sit there and go, I don't know either. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm just like a creative person, and I have my ups and downs, and I've made some big mistakes, but I've also created communities and all that kind of stuff. But it just feels a lot like different lifetimes to me. Like, I almost feel like there's just like different lives. That's the only way I really sort of look at it, because I don't hang out with those people anymore. So, and I don't hang in those circles anymore. So I just feel like it's maybe like moving country or something.
Yeah. And you have to be careful with your words as well, because even when you're trying to explain, like, all you really want to say is like, I'm just a dude who does things. Like, that's all I am. But that's not that you give that answer and you just get weird looks and stuff. So you try and explain it a bit more. And it's like, I found out recently, I was trying to describe like, what do I do? Because I don't say if someone asks, what do you do? It's sort of like the implicit is like, what's your job? Um, and I don't want to say podcasting, even though that's the thing that resembles it the most.
Hmm.
And so I experimented saying with like, I'm retired for a bit. I was like, oh yeah, I'm retired. I've worked for like 5 years, and people were adding like 5, 10 years to my age just by guessing.
That's
They would
funny.
assume that I was way older, and I was like, oh shit. It's funny how just saying like one word can drastically like alter your physical appearance as well.
And it is interesting. It's like, I suppose it's almost like when you see little ants and they seem to know where they're going, and then they bump into each other and they do this little antenna jig and then they just keep going. It's almost like that interaction that you have with a complete stranger
Mm.
that instantly asks you, so what do you do? And it's like, yeah, so how do you make money, kind of thing, or whatever. And it's like, as soon as you say something, that you're right. It's like a human to human, ant to ant kind of, they want to say something to make you feel comfortable, but it's not that you asked for it. If I say like I'm a graphic designer, I've met countless of strangers where I said I'm a graphic designer, and they're like, "Oh, I need a new business card. Maybe I could contact you about that." No,
Yeah.
I didn't want your business. I didn't want your help. You asked me what I do. That's what I do. So it's fascinating. You're 100% bang on. I think it'd probably be more fun to just say you do something different every time
Yeah.
as a social experiment, because you're bang on. It's interesting. I suppose that's why in corporate culture people have such interesting titles, just to make themselves feel like
Yeah, a
maybe,
little bit unique, a little bit different.
yeah, I'll take a $10,000 pay cut for a interesting title, general manager, or some, I don't know, some weird titles that they come up with these days. Are
Yeah, like
probably
creative
justification.
strategist,
Yeah,
yeah, marketing executive guru.
yeah. Or like all those guys that are in IT, and they, so what do you do in IT? And it just is, I wish I didn't ask that question, because it's never anything defined.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What's so you've been, yeah, like we were saying, you've done a lot of things, man. There was like the Zen Garage, you're doing photography, the even just like playing video games. You seem to be like really getting into video games at the moment. Is
Yeah,
that
super.
do you like plan these things out? Do you get a feeling for like how long you'll be in a mood for, or it's sort of like you can't
Oh,
tell when the next almost like change will come up, or you'll start devoting more time to something else.
I don't know. Like, I think with the video games, like I've reached some parts of it now where I'm like in the top 5% of the player base, and there's like 2 or 3 million players, and it's not the same as speaking at semi-permanent design conference in front of 3,000 people. It's not the same as running field trip conferences in Fed Square and the Seymour Center, and these memories that I have of things that I've been involved with the design community, and even with the car meets, like the end of month car meets where thousands of cars rocked up every month, and or getting my logo into Need for Speed, the computer game, and with EA games and stuff like that. Like, there are things. Uh, I suppose it's like, when your parents put you up against a wall and make a mark in the wall. Like, there are things that were marks in the wall for me that I can't ignore. Like, I have a bad memory, but I'll remember all of those big things, because I was really proud of myself for some things. But like, being in the top 5% of a computer game, I know I can't treat it the same way. It's going to fade away a lot quicker. But at the same time, I think I'm okay with it. Like, I think something comes from reaching so many big goals, not even if they were goals or not, but just having some of these huge experiences has really put myself at ease going forward. And it's not that I've given up, but it feels a lot like, okay, at least I've done that. And I don't mean to be patronizing or demeaning here, but I meet a lot of young people who, even though they're in their like mid-20s or something, they still haven't done what I was doing when I was 20 or 21. So I don't say that to them, but deep down, I think it, because I can see them struggling with all this modern crap or whatever, or still living at home with their parents, or just trying to do something. Or they think they're better than me in the computer game we're playing. But I was sitting there and I go, okay, well, fuck. You know, by that age, I had already done this, 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 and this, and this. And that keeps me content, I suppose, to a point where I don't feel like I'm starving to fucking make another mark in the wall, because I have so many that I'm already really happy with. So yeah, I do feel like that is something that you know, keeps me not sane, but it just keeps me from rushing into anything, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I like the word content you use, because it's a I have a problem with the word happiness, because it's like you know, are you happy? Are you is if you're judging your life based on happiness, I tend to find that doesn't work out so great, because you can chase happiness. Like, it's always something that can be chased, and then you can use like artificial means, like, you know, use drugs or sex or whatever to like get that adrenaline boost, that get the cortisol rising, and you know, feel really good. But then the sort of come downs come as well. But it's with contentedness, it's like you can't chase it. You know, if you're chasing contentedness, it doesn't make sense. It's not like it almost forces you to like stop and just chill out a little bit. Like the very concept of Zen, your brand. One thing I do like about Zen and sort of Taoism as well is like it sort of doesn't make sense. Like, the point of it is that it doesn't make sense and that it's paradoxical. And so, you know, it's almost like if you want to chase contentedness, you can't do that, but that's also the way you want to go. It's almost like a direction.
Because chasing something is like being hungry about it, right? So if you're trying to be full but you're hungry, you got to do something about it because you're hungry. So you're bang on, but I think it's not something that you can achieve through reading something or being told something, right? Like, I think being content and, yeah, you're right, being content and happy is very different, but being full is experiences and knowledge and real life experiences, right? So I think, like, it's never been a situation where in life you meet someone that's exactly on your same wavelength. It just never happens. Everyone's on different levels. So, you know, when I was running Zen, you'd have a whole lot of young, you know, 15 to 18-year-old kids coming in, and they'd be asking you silly questions and how much power does your car make and all this kind of stuff. And I could sit there and just go, oh my God, this is a fucking waste of time, you know, fuck these kids. Or I can go, well, fucking who knows where this kid's going to be in 5-10 years from now. You know, give them a bit of time and then plant seeds and see what happens. And a real classic example of that was, at some point, some dude from New Zealand came into Zen Garage and he brought some photography that he had printed out, and he wanted to show me and get my feedback on it. And he was in a job that he really hated, but he really wanted to chase photography as a dream. And I don't even remember. I vaguely remember, but apparently I sat down on the couch with him for 3 hours and just chilled with him during work hours at Zen. And 2 or 3 years ago, he became my business partner, Nick Turner, and he's an amazing award-winning studio photographer.
Yeah,
and
that's cool.
He's the bomb now. And he reminded me, man, you gave me all that time years ago, you know, like 2011 or something. I gave him this time and sat him down, and it made him quit his job, and he started chasing photography as a profession. And so that's a classic real analogy of, you know, you can't really judge people because everyone's on such a different journey. And I know that, like, you know, when my dad died when I was 18 and shit like that, like, holy fuck, it's really weird to think that I'm at the age now where my dad died. So at this age where I'm at now, he had 2 children. And I never really even got to speak to him like this as a man to man kind of thing, you know? So it trips me out. Like all of this shit is just so weird and it's so acute and it's so interesting. But all I can say is, yeah, nobody else really understands me. I don't really worry about that. All I can do is do what I do and, yeah, put it out there, get judged on it. And I don't know, I'm more content now than ever in that I have tried so many things.
Yeah. I think that's
I don't, you know.
the key bit as well. I remember listening to I think it's this guy Naval Ravikant, who's sort of he posts like some stuff on Twitter, and he's sort of like one of those wise sages in a way. Like he you can be pretty coherent on most topics, and you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And he was talking about chasing something, like whether it be wealth or fame or looks, or becoming the best handstander or becoming the best brand in the world or something like that. And he was making the point that you don't have to do it for everything, but it is nice to get to the point where you can own the Ferrari for a bit, and then get rid of it and be like, I don't really need that anymore. Like, and you can sort of get to the same point sometimes with some things. Like, I don't think I'll ever need to prove myself with regards to, I don't know, pick like an obscure topic, like gaining like the highest degree, getting a PhD or something. Like, yep. I don't need to prove myself from that point. I'm pretty sure I could get one if I really wanted to, but it's like, like it doing the effort to get it wouldn't pay off for me. But I'm still chasing other things in life, and so it's sort of like being able to just tick off some boxes. You don't have to tick off all of them, but tick off some boxes, being like, I did that, and that's like undeniable. I fucking know that in my brain. I took that leap of faith and did that thing, and that sort of can give you that little bit of solid grounding to the contentedness, I guess. Like there's actually something to rest on.
Bang on. I think it's just bang on, man. Like I've been watching a bit of like MasterChef Canada on YouTube. I always go down these weird.
Yeah, why do you pick Canada and not Australia?
Because they're so friendly, man. Everyone's so friendly. And even when they're trying to be mean to each other, they're not, and they hug each other after every challenge, and it's so wholesome, and they're cooking with passion, and it's like there's so much art in it that I appreciate. And I love it when a contestant makes it to the top 12 or top 10 and they're literally staring down the barrel of the camera saying, this is one of the best days of my life, right? And they've already had children and they've been married and they've had other amazing things happen in their lives, obviously, but that is one of, so it's very easy for someone watching or in the comments to go, oh, well, someone to say, I'm one of the best chefs in Canada. And I was like, no, you're not. You're just in a competition. There are heaps of fucking amazing chefs. Okay, logically, that's probably correct. But you can't take it away from someone who values it so much. Like, you just can't, So if that's a mark in the wall for them, then fucking so be it. It's so easy to take that away from people. It's like, so what? You've got the fastest car. You probably have heaps of money and you put it all into the car and, of course, it's faster. Well, fuck off. That person still made the car and they still did it.
Yeah.
So it's really easy to discount what other people place value in. But I think deep down, it's really hard for people to be honest with themselves and go, well, is that really a mark? Or am I just saying it? Because so many people think, I understand it, because everyone wants to have that ego and confidence, and everyone wants to pat themselves on the back. Everyone wants to think that they're good at something, or that they want to be happy with. They want to brag. Everyone wants to flex a little bit.
Yeah, for sure.
Flexing is not necessarily a bad thing if it comes from a good place, right? You're not putting somebody down to lift yourself up. You're just showing off something. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But I think it's wrong when it doesn't come from an honest place. And I think heaps of people are dishonest with what they're flexing about. So there's someone who's flexing because they actually are good at it. That's fine. But when someone's flexing based on nothing, it's really difficult to have a conversation with those people.
Yeah.
So
You need the other part, so it needs to have like a receptive audience for it. So if you're trying to flex something that someone doesn't care about, or you're forcing it onto them, or you're exaggerating the extent that you've managed to do this thing, or just straight up like falsely lying. There's definitely some people like that. Like, even though you might think it's like, oh, I'm just showing off, you need someone to show off too. So there needs to be like the other side of it, the recipient. And you can get that really wrong unintentionally as well. Like you can unintentionally flex or something, and it's like you're doing that to the wrong person, and it's not going to come across great.
It's awkward as fuck, right? Like I've done it from memory. This is a really embarrassing moment for me. But when I started doing these podcasts, there was one that I was really quite happy with, and I was hanging out with a really good friend of mine who was introducing me to her two other good friends, and they were a couple, and I was so proud of myself that I put on some of these podcasts at this couple's place. I can't believe I did that. It's so embarrassing. Like in retrospect now, I could have just talked about the topic as opposed to
showing them the actual video. Yeah.
But also into podcasting. So I was kind of like, it was my jam at the moment. So I'm like that kid in year 3 that has, show and tell, and I'm up on the stage and I'm showing off something, and it's like in retrospect, and then I remembered the couple, the guy ended up putting on a video that he did, and it was almost like, oh shit, I don't want to be like outdone here, so I'm gonna fucking flex and I'm gonna show you a video that I'm in. And then I thought of us both as fucking idiots, because the two girls next to us would have been going, fucking peacocks, like calm the fuck down, you guys are showing off and trying to outdo each other. And it's like so boring, it's so childish, and it's so like, you dumb men. So and it's like, it's so embarrassing. Like, in the moment I thought I was fine, but I was just flexing for no good reason, like you said, in front of the wrong people.
It reminds me of that story you told on I think it was Finding Space with Leslie, and you were talking about how you had some friends who did some mock-up advertisements. So they had I can't remember what they were, like video editors or something like that.
That's right.
And then you were showing this and you were like, man, look at all these cool advertisements to people, and showed it to one guy who's just like, Justin, you just made me watch like 40 minutes of advertisements.
You see, they're the funny things that people say that come back at you. Like I was saying, like sometimes you meet people that have such a different perspective that at the time you're so pig-headed and sure of yourself that you just discount what they say, until much later on sometimes, where you go, shit, And, it's true that a lot of people who have been abused when they were young, you're able to block shit out until eventually you really can figure out where some of your problems come from, So I think it's interesting how we do block out or devalue someone's opinion, thinking that that's stupidity and that's ridiculous, but only because we're coming from a place of being so secure in, our own minds about valuing what we've done and our achievements. And then, you think that you're so comfortable there that anything anybody says that is slightly negative or questions what you do, your primary passion right now, you probably just discount instantly. Because you feel like you know more or better. So, I find that really fascinating.
It can be really tenuous as well. You just they can wear like baggy jeans or something, and you can maybe think like, everyone should be wearing like slim fitting jeans because that makes like the body look better, and et cetera, et cetera. And then they could be talking about something economical, and you're just like, I don't need to listen to this. They wear stupid jeans, like just totally discount.
Man. Yeah.
And I do that all the time as well. Honestly, I need to Yeah, I should think about that a
Don't you
little
think
bit
we
more.
all do? Like,
Yeah.
no, that's the thing. Like, don't you find that it's so weird that like we're so complicated? You know, like we're like I do love that Ouroboros, like the snake eating its tail, because I always look at it these kind of conversations as that. Like I always, or I look at these kind of conversations as like smoking marijuana for the first time and just trying to figure out what life is about, and you end up just like throwing everything down. But at the end of it, you're no clearer than when you started.
Yeah, yeah. 100%.
You know, and I think that's to just not get frustrated with it, but instead just um, look at it almost as a vulnerability and just be open rather than closed. I've always found that that is the way forward, and I've always, generally speaking, I've always the only time I was ever scared to voice stuff was probably in high school when, you know, I would put my hand up and ask really dumb questions that was so dumb that they had nothing to do with what was on the blackboard, to the point where a teacher called me a loser once in front of the whole
Whoa.
class because it was
Damn.
such a dumb question. And so that all of that really got to me. You know, I was bullied a lot in school as well and all this kind of shit. So that's where I started. But then when I found art and all that kind of stuff, I started to realize, you know, fuck, I'm just going to own it. You know, I owned it. And ever since then, it's kind of always been about who gives a fuck if it's a dumb question. I'm just going to fucking do it anyway because I'm only human, kind of thing. Like literally you can't blame me for that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I think that's always been in times of like doubt and all that kind of stuff. Like there hardly is any doubt for me because I always know like, well, all I can do is try and all I can do is do what I do. And I think that's really helped me with everything that I've sort of ever put myself into.
For
I
sure.
think that's always helped.
Were you born here, Justin?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like a language barrier or anything as well. You just, I mean, the schooling
Oh,
system is, yeah, it doesn't accommodate everyone.
I was
it's a
born here.
mixed
They
match.
threw
Yeah.
me in ESL and stuff, even though I was born here.
Yeah.
Just because I
Yeah.
was like one of the only Asian kids, so they threw me in there anyway. And yeah, I got bullied. Got bullied so hard in primary school. I used to get like hit in the back of the head all day long, slap head, and all the kind of names and all that shit. So it wasn't until I actually told my parents. I had an injury. Like one of the kids bullied me to a point where I sprained my thumb, and at that point, it was probably one of the hardest things I've ever had to do in my life, was to actually tell my parents that I was being bullied. And my dad came with me to the school the next day, and my whole life changed. No one bullied me ever again.
Yeah.
And it really taught me something. It's like you can be proud and you can be tough and shit like that, but at some point, you need to figure out a next level. The next level for me was to just go, you know, fucking tell somebody.
Yeah. How wild's that? That the hardest thing wasn't, you know, the enduring of it. It was
It was
yeah, just
actually
telling your
asking
parents.
for help.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's another lesson learned, you know, like really is a childhood thing that really just solidified something in my head going forwards, you know. I love to be in control. I love to do, that's my comfort zone kind of thing. But hey, who knows? Like there might come another time where I can't save myself here and I might need to ask for help. And I've done that only once since, you know, coming out of a hole. Like my mum saved my life and all that kind of shit. So it's like, okay, well, fuck, again, parents helped out. You know, they are the people who put you on the planet. So it's kind of like not that surprising. But
What do you think
it's
it
really
was that
interesting.
was holding you back? Was it like shame? Like you're ashamed that it was happening to you,
Yeah.
or
Yeah, of course. Like you're just so embarrassed. Like being embarrassed it's such a heavy thing, right? It's such a heavy feeling, and that's why paranoia and all of that. Like a lot of people don't publish because they're scared. They're scared of the embarrassment, and it's like you put yourself out there to be judged. You get judged, and then you don't really have anyone to cry home to, right? So you got to deal with it, and people lose sleep over this shit. So I understand it, but at the same time, like you can't you can't be so scared that you don't do anything. Like, oh my God, I just don't understand that. I think it's pretty obvious that people find strength in being vulnerable. It's pretty obvious. You share your vulnerabilities to get a much clearer perspective on it. Because before you shared it, it's floating around your brain like a motherfucker, like being bullied every day. It is just over and over again beating yourself up, bullying yourself. And once you actually share your fears or vulnerabilities with somebody else or with the world, even better, like you're actually putting it into words. You're actually defining it for the first time out loud. Like it becomes real as opposed to just a figment of your imagination. So it becomes so defined that it actually gives you the ability to then look at it from a completely different perspective. So it's better out than in kind of thing,
Yeah. This is kind of like it's a question I want to ask because I just have zero experience with this sort of topic, I suppose, which is you do a bunch of photography for escorts, right? So what's like their general and it's kind of a shit question because I'm asking you to generalize over I'm sure a bunch of different people, but how do they typically behave? Because I'm really interested in like what's their general perception of like telling family members, for example, or like owning it? Like, what do you do for work? Oh, I'm an escort, sort of thing.
Yeah.
You had a pretty crazy story of a girl who was trapped somewhere overseas, and then she was like the thing she was most scared about was her parents like dying there, and her parents going into her room and finding like all of these sex toys and stuff.
Yeah, I think there's like escorts who are just starting out, like her, like being fresh and stuff. Many of the time they start out and they have another escort friend who's been in the industry for a lot longer. So that's the person that they look to as a mentor, I suppose. But there are a lot of challenges, right, for an escort starting out. The big one is, do you come out clean about what you do to your family, friends, and show your face? And then the other escorts who don't show their face and prefer to have it as a secret life, right? And, those people are those escorts are a little bit more 1 foot in, 1 foot out because they have an escape plan already. Like, and sometimes when you get into a career, you're not already thinking about a way out.
Yeah, that's true.
Because you got to be so into something to succeed, right? You can't be thinking about a way out before you even start, But I think with escorts that don't show their faces, it's because they have so much value placed on privacy and family and friends and stuff like that. They don't want their friends to know and stuff like that. But it's scary in this day and age. You can tell, like if a girl has a freckle on her arm and that's it, a faceless shot, and then she's on Facebook somewhere with a freckle on her arm. The internet's crazy these days.
Yeah.
Right. So all of this is happening in real time and people are figuring this shit out. So escorts that show their faces, that own their jobs, make a lot more money as well. Like they get a lot more bookings because their faces are in it. So I suppose a client feels like there's not going to be a surprise. They can see what she looks like. So there's that. And it's really fascinating. Like I think every single escort I've met, apart from the very obvious stuff, which is they do love sex and they love all of that, but there's also a fascinating thing with manipulation. Like they're not their names, right? It's a character. It's and they know that when you share whether it's at 1 hour or whether it's 4 days, it's a bubble, and you are not you are this character, and you're being paid to be a professional. And to be a professional, you have to not only command the respect, but it's the manipulation that commands the respect. So what makes your client happy, It's your job to keep them happy. It's your job to keep them thinking that they're smarter than you or that they might be using you, but actually you're using them. And it's really, really complicated. And it's
Yeah.
really hard work because you have to stay in character, especially if it's an overnighter or a four day or an overseas trip. You got to be in character the whole fucking time. And so also when you get negativity from other, because this is the way a lot of communities work, is like you get hate from people within your community. Like car guys will hate other car guys, or escorts will hate on other escorts. It's like, my God, you're all into the same thing. You're all part of
Yeah.
the same
Yeah.
community, but the strongest hate comes from the people that are the most like you. It's really weird, but then they get so upset about it. But hey, they're not upset at you, the real you. They're upset at the character. So it's really, there's a lot going on. And then you have a lot of clients who just say it's really hard to, you got to know the English language and communication so well that when you're communicating with a potential client, they, you got to catch them out. They can't just be like copy pasting somebody else's beautiful intro, because maybe it's a real freak there. So you got to ask some weird, have a weird conversation on text and try to figure out if this person's a freak or not. And God, there are a lot of freaks, man. Like there's like messages that are like, fuck you, you fucking ugly bitch. Fuck you for not replying to me or whatever. And it's like, God damn, they started out so sweet. And then they went so ape shit to a point where it's abusive as fuck. And it's like, it freaks me out that these men exist, because like that person has a mother and a sister and maybe a daughter and stuff, but they're talking like that. And it's real. I've seen these messages. I'm like, wow, like it's unbelievable. So, escorts are fascinating people, and it's really hard work, and it's not always got to do with abuse or anything like that, but a lot of the time it is got to do with relationship gone bad or a marriage gone bad, and then I suppose finding confidence again through somebody else giving you adoration. And it's quite addictive. It must be quite addictive to be married to someone who was so abusive and put you in such a low position, but then to meet people every week that adore you, it must be like a drug as well.
Yeah.
You know, and people giving you money for no reason, like $1,000 here or $500 there. Oh, just no reason. Just enjoy it. Buy yourself something nice. It's like, wow, like there are some high rollers out there, and it's all transient. You only know them for a little bit and then move on and find another escort to give money to. But it's like, it's really weird.
Damn, that sounds like you've described like the whirlwind of problems that we each deal with, but like one at a time sort of. It's like, you know, online hate versus real life interactions, the being embarrassed of something, the the drug of an addictive substance, or like addictive routine or something like that. Yeah.
It's amazing, man. And also another thing is like when some girls start to earn big money, like 10K, 10 to 20K a week, right? Buying like designer shoes and, you know, $15,000 Burberry trench coats and shit like that. Like it's not what the brands exist for. Like the brand doesn't want to sell to sex workers. You know, it wants to sell to women who are filthy rich, that have like a billionaire husbands, and snap a finger and buy this shit. No, it doesn't hurt anybody. But for an escort to work that fucking hard and spend her money on a brand it's not made for them. You know, it really hurts me. You know, it really upsets me to see my escort friends blow huge amounts of cash on designer label stuff, because I'm like, that's not aimed at you. You're not meant to be the core consumer of that product, you know. Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. This is a good topic to like lead into, I guess, like brands and communities. It sounds like you've created a fair few communities just like through the Zen Garage, like the garage meetups. You've I mean, even like the podcast in a way, in a little bit. What's been your like learnings, I guess, from starting communities? Because I find that a pretty interesting topic as well to go into.
Yeah, I think for many years I was more known as someone who was creating communities, and it started in the late '90s with the graphic design course that I did. I was graduating, and at that time, the internet was really new, so we were on it, but it was 14.4K modems. It was really slow. So if you wanted a design job, you'd have to buy a newspaper, and you'd go to the job section, and they'd all be asking for like 10 plus years experience. But we just graduated, so how the fuck are we gonna get a job? So also a particular during university, a particular famous designer was flown over from London to give us a pep talk, and she singled me out of all 40 students in the class. I was wearing like goth clothing, like long braids and fucking high heels and ripped up pants and tights. I was wearing tights, and she pointed at me and she said, "You won't make it. You won't get a job dressing like that.
Damn,
you guys have got to go. You got to go overseas to make it. You got to go overseas and like get good and all that kind of shit." And I just like, I was fiery, like, fuck you, bitch, I'm proving you wrong, right? So I created a little group. It was on ICQ, and we created a little group called Australian In Front, which is literally the opposite of Australian Outback. So the way I look at it is like Outback in front, right? And the whole concept of in front is that all these people telling us that we should be inspired by Swedish design or German typography or whatever. I'm like, fuck that shit. We've got the oldest living culture in the world here. We've got the most venomous fucking animals in the world. We have so much in our backyard. Let's all be proud of it. Take inspiration from our own fucking country and stop copying other people's shit. Fuck going overseas to make it. Let's make it here. Let's all go, like, we're in front of everybody else from the outback, right? We're right on the edge of the fucking country. We're on like the Sydney and Melbourne. We're at the edges. We're in front of everybody else. And we're just yelling out to the rest of the world saying, fucking look at us. Our design's fucking awesome. We're Australian. We're proud of this shit. So that was this thing, the whole concept of creating a community where we'd been taught that we're nothing, that we should go overseas to make it, and that we should copy other countries' work. But I really turned it around and started to get people proud of taking inspiration from our own backyard, right? So Australian In Front was born, and I created a manifesto, and it was really powerful. And at Sydney Design 99, which was this huge international design conference that was at Darling Harbour. So they used every single fucking hall at Darling Harbour. My professor got to have like a little slot for a presentation in front of the whole conference. And he asked me to do it, to represent the university, because he thought I was a fucking weirdo, but he also really gave me a hard time for 4 years. But he actually said to me that he only gave me a hard time because he could see something in me. So he asked me can you represent the university and go up and talk about the uni? And I said yes. And I got up there on this microphone, and there was like 3,000 or 4,000 old men in suits with all white hair and bald and shit like that, right? I was the only young person there, I swear. And I got up there in a matching Nike highly reflective fluorescent jacket and pants and sneakers. And I presented the Australian In Front manifesto instead of talking about the uni. I thought, I'm going to take this opportunity to launch my community.
Nice.
And they're all smiling and shit. They thought it was cute that I was trying so hard to change the industry. But at the end of that, there were maybe about 10 or so really quite young people that came up to me and said, "Oh my God, where do I fucking sign up?" That was fucking amazing, And it just grew from there. Created a forum, and in the end we were running conferences in Sydney and Melbourne, and we ran a whole series of Apple talks at the Apple store in George Street as well. So that was really cool. Just grew and grew and grew. We represented Australia at Ikagrata, which is an international like the UN of graphic design. There's a representative in every country, and Ikagrata travels to every country once a year. And they came to Melbourne, and the Australian Graphic Design Association, AGDA, approached me to represent Australia at Ikagrata, and we presented in front the manifesto, and we presented the concept of why is it that as professionals we studied for 4 years, we slaved for 4 years before we got like a decent salary, yet when we get a job we start from 9 to 5, and from 5 to 8 we're not paid. Like, we work on this shit from morning to night, but we're professionals. Why is it that the guy at Macca's does 9 to 5, and at 5 o'clock he fucking goes home and he can do whatever he wants, but he got paid every single minute that he was at work? But as professionals, we slogged it. 4 years uni, 4 years junior, finally going to graphic designer, then senior designer. And now as senior designers, 9 to 5 we're being paid, but from 5 to 8 when we're still working, we're not being paid. And it was interesting, like, for them to hear that from young 21-year-olds, whatever. So
yeah,
so we shook it up, you know. We shook it up, and I wouldn't say it's necessarily because of Infront, but a whole lot of graphic designers are pretty happy to stay in Australia now and believe that, you know, we don't have to copy the latest design trends from
for sure.
overseas. And, yeah.
How much do you think is it about like your personality driving it as well versus the concept, the idea?
I don't know. I was never the best designer, so I always knew that there were some designers that were my heroes and were so much better than me. But I think I figured out very early on that if you want to have some of that amazing hot work in your portfolio, you better work with them. You know, like, I can't do amazing typography like Dom can, so I'm going to hit him up and say, hey Dom, do you want to work on a piece together? An art piece, not even a commercial piece. Then we work on something together, and then all of a sudden I've got his amazing typography in something that I created as well, and I put that in my portfolio. Same thing with anybody. I feel like these days, like, I'm not in competition with anybody else. If someone's doing something that it's so amazing I can't possibly do it, reach out to them and somehow work with them so it becomes a part of my life, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that's community, man. I think that's what community is. It's not about like flexing and saying I'm the best at this. It's like when you start to meld and work together and create community projects. Like, we had one of our most popular projects was called Visual Response, and the idea was we would set a canvas size and say no photography allowed, because we didn't want people to break copyright issues. And we would choose a topical word every month. Refugee was huge at that time, so that was probably our biggest word ever. We did Visual Response number 8 or number 9 or something like that. It was the 9th time we did it, and the word was refugee. And fuck, we got more entries than ever before. And it's just amazing how people can express themselves through a blank canvas and using Illustrator or something, and without photography, and just create amazingly powerful images. We've had really interesting words, you know, like woman, or just fantastic project for the whole community to get involved in, and everyone to submit a piece, and then for us to take the top voted pieces and actually have art shows and art galleries to show off the work and stuff. So real sense of community, real sense of we had really strong messages. Like, I think Zen Garage, we've got it's okay if you don't get it, but with Infront we had get involved, get in front. We had always have something to say. Yeah, we had like strong inspirational messages, and I think, you know, you create community by involving people, right? And then putting their work to the front somehow. And when, like, same with the car community, like, I would reach out to all the magazines and say, hey, I'm running this car meet. Can I have a couple of pages, you know, in your magazine, and just take some photos at the car meet? And my God, when guys would see their car in their favorite automotive magazine, they're part of your community for life. It's just so good. Feels so good, you know? It feels so good to see your car in a mag. So same thing with the car meets. It's like there's always going to be photographers that only shoot the 4 or 5 hot cars there. But my job as the guy who runs the community, my job was to take a photo of every car there. It got to a point where it was impossible because the car meets got so big. But the concept was you can park your shit box next to a car that's like worth $500,000. There's nowhere that says you can't park your car next to that car. It's like everyone's car means something to them. So if you shoot everyone's cars and they see a photo of their car on the forum the next day, it's a sense of community. You know, they feel so happy that someone took a shot of their car. So,
that's super cool. When you join, like you personally join others, so you were talking about you've joined a gaming one recently. Is that sort of what you look for, like the ability to interact? Like it's almost like easy for you to be part of it. Like you don't have to take too many steps.
Yeah, I suppose I look at it as after creating Infront and the forum and all of that and the website, creating the second community was so much easier. It's like I look at it as like the Batman belt with all the little yellow pouches, and it's like you have this belt of tricks and you can just apply the same thing to the next. And it's actually got easier and easier because with the design community, they're so critical about layout, typography, and how it looks and feels. And so they were the hardest crowd to please. But when I created a car community, they don't know the first thing about graphic design, really. So what was weird was the forum just looked so much hotter than all the other automotive forums that existed, you know? And what was funny is I approached all of those forums, Toy Mods, Skylines Australia, Oz Honda, all the biggest car forums. I approached them and said, hey, I'm a graphic designer. Your forum looks disgusting. Can I redesign the banner for you? And it was funny because all the sites were designed by me in the end. It's just easy for me. But I enjoyed that because then I would visit other people's forums and I would see my work there and I'd feel really proud about it, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a little bit of a tool belt and it becomes very easy. So joining this Discord, these gamers recently, it's run by a woman who has put so much energy into it, but no one was talking. It was so quiet in there, you know? So I said, one of the most populated threads on the forums that I've ever run has been the word association game, where you write blue and then the next person writes red and someone writes heat, and then it's addictive. Sometimes people are too scared to say something real, but they'll join a silly game and just start typing. And we did it, and it's like within 3 weeks, it became the most commented thread in the history of her Discord. So I create wallpapers for them every week. So I'll just sit in Photoshop for give myself 15, 20 minutes, and create something cool for them. And next thing you know, people are sending in photos of their desktop setups with my wallpaper on it. And it's this thing, like you just nurture it and get people to come out of the woodwork and start sharing. So
that's cool. Yeah. I like that. I've sort of been thinking about for the mere mortals, what do I want to create one? It's sort of hard for me because the more time I spend offline, generally the happier I am. The more I feel like I'm doing well. And so then it's okay, well, if that's the case, how can I create a face-to-face community? How can I do that? And yeah, I'm sort of trying to experiment a little bit with that, personally going out to more events and meetup groups and things like that. And then also trying to organize some myself, and not even necessarily just based on the mere mortals, but Podcasters Brisbane or something, try and get together a meetup or something like that.
You got to build the platform. Once you build the platform, then you can use it, right? So, we built up Zen Garage to be a fairly big brand, and that blog was being hit at that time by 500,000 people a week, right? So it was a good platform. So then it's very easy for us to use that platform and social media to call out and say, we did a photography thing where we would say, we're doing a photo walk and we're going to meet up at Zen Garage on Saturday. Bring your iPhone, bring your camera, digital, film, doesn't fucking matter. Just come along and we're going to walk from here and break into the fucking train yards and we're going to take photos of trams.
Yeah.
And man, the people that rocked up, it was fucking sick. And then we jumped the fence, the cops came and everything. It was fucking awesome, right? I said to everybody, don't worry, it was an awesome day. Thanks for coming. Your photos will be, send me the photos to Justin at Zen Garage, and then send me a link to WeTransfer, whatever, and I'll put them all up in a huge feature on the blog. And I did that the very next day, and that's community. Again, you have the platform. You have to have the platform. And once you do and you publish other people's work that haven't, especially people who've never been published before, they're so stoked, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how you create that community. So, yeah, you have to lead and you have to have a platform.
For sure. For sure. That's really cool. Slightly off topic, but ever since I heard this, I really wanted to ask you about this. You were involved with a mobile game once upon a time, and it was sort of like, it was like a Candy Crush type thing, was it? Or like it was sort of like a simple mobile game, right?
Yeah, it wasn't that simple actually. It was really technically, it was quite brilliant. But yeah, I have to be really. I have talked about this, but I suppose that company is not around anymore. I just checked the other day actually. I checked to see if their website was around, but they're not around anymore. And I haven't spoken to the people who run it, but they're good friends of mine.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, whatever the game was, like, there was a point where you were saying that it was going really successful, starting to make like a lot of money from it, and you found out that there was basically, I don't know, like 90% of the revenue was coming from like one kid who was using his mom's credit card. Is that how the story went?
Yeah. And it's a good analogy for so many things in life, right? So many, like, you know, they're called whales in the gaming industry. They're called whales. So do the developers that make the game think about the whales? Probably not, but the managing team probably does.
Yeah.
So there's always too, like when people hate a game and hate the developers, they probably don't hate the developers. They probably hate the management team for some sort of loot box or some
the
sort
incentive
of
structure that's maybe built inside the game or something. Yeah.
And sure, they have to make money because a lot of these free to play games, they're free to download, you can play them, but then they've got to generate income somehow. So it's all understandable, but I suppose it's really difficult these days because people are like, oh, if it's pay to win, I'm never going to play that. Or if people can smell the compromise from the outset, they're already not going to invest. It's really bizarre. It's really strange. I suppose you can liken it to someone not choosing not to buy bacon because if it's pink, it's because it's been colored that way.
Yeah, like an additive or something.
Actually, So, or someone choosing not to buy, food because it has preservatives in it or something. I think there's a little bit of that going on. But then you also talk to farmers and they're like, we have to spray our crops, otherwise it all gets eaten by shit, insects, and fucking bats will eat it, or birds will smash it. So it's like sometimes you have to hear both sides of the story, but it's a really tough one, man. Selling out is such an interesting topic to talk about.
Let's just focus on that game for the moment. How did you find out there was just sort of one kid using his mum's?
You always have stats. You have stats on everything, right? Just stats.
Yeah. Okay. And then I suppose like the most fascinating thing was like you said you stepped away from it, right? Like you couldn't, I suppose like ethically continue on because you just felt like I just want to examine like that decision. Like what was it that really made you decide to step away and why?
I think it's similar to stepping away from any other thing that I've ever stepped away from, like stepping away from advertising on. I think I have an issue with money. Like I've always had a association of money being evil, or I've seen it do bad things to people, or and I've never really been able to get over that. I've never, as much as I've tried to not look at money as being evil, I just can't help it. And there's so many situations similar to the game situation that I've had in my life. The first big agency I worked for, I won't name who they are, but I was doing CD-ROM design at the time because there was no internet yet, right? So I was doing CD-ROMs, and it was a pharmaceutical client. And at that time, pharmaceutical drug companies could not advertise on television or radio or print. It was illegal to. So what they did was go to ad agencies to create these awesome CD-ROMs, go to the pharmacies with a laptop and present the drugs on a laptop and try to get a deal there, right? So I was employed, and I had this job for an HIV drug that was designed to slow down HIV. It wasn't a cure, it was just to slow it down. It was a very early drug. It was very early days. And it was the first sort of cool job for me. They said, like, you can do whatever the fuck you want. Just make it rad, make it street cool, grungy type, whatever you want. Just make it fucking, crazy cool, street cool. And to sell it, and sell it to a younger market kind of thing. And I put everything I had into it until I did a bit of digging around, and I found out from my project manager that they had so much of the old stock that this new stock and a better and more improved HIV drug was coming. So they hired me to sell the old stock as much as I could, because they didn't want to just throw it in the bin. But they already had the new, better drug. So for me, it was so fucked. Like, I didn't quite quit the job at that time, but that's when I knew, like, oh man, I need to be careful of what I'm doing as a designer. I was a junior still, but I'm like, I don't have to live with it. Somebody else is going to do it.
Yeah, yeah. And you're playing part in it almost. Like it's a minor role, but yeah.
It's like we were talking about before. I have to sleep with this shit. Like, I have to remember this forever. And I did a website for a mining company too, and I made it look fucking hot. Shit hot, man. And it's like, oh my God. I did that, I tried to make up for it by doing, like, I did the Ted Knopf's Foundation. I did the charity in King's Cross. And I've done a few free sites for charities because I felt so bad about some of the sites that I did when I was younger. For the money, I worked for a PR company in Sydney, CBD, huge company. I didn't even know that the stuff in the Sydney Morning Herald was all PR. But when I was working there, I realized this was all written in-house and sent out as news. It was all property related, all property developments, and it was all paid for. And like, I learned a lot, man. I learned a lot, but I'm like, I put my hand up and like, I don't have to do this, Like, someone's got to do it. I get it. It's a dirty job, but someone's got to do it. But I don't know, man. Ethics, it's a tough one. But for me, it's like, I don't want to do work that I can justify because I need the money. Because that money is going to go anyway into my rent or my power bills or whatever. It's not a justification. Like, when you talk to all the drug dealers on Skid Row and you try to get them to say, how the fuck can you sell this stick of shit for $15 knowing that it could kill someone? And they're like, fuck you, bro. I got to eat as well. I got mouths to feed. That's their justification. I don't buy it.
I also agree. I think you can maybe find yourself in that position if you just have like a really shit go of life at the start. You fuck up, or like your parents are dirt poor and you've been like abused and stuff. Like, I can understand getting to positions like that, but then sort of like you're saying, like, at some point you have to be like, all right, I want to move away from this. Like, however I do it doesn't particularly matter, or at least, like, let's go to something that's less worse. So I'm not taking part in something that, like, you can't truly believe in. Getting right back to where we were saying at the start, like, pretending everything's okay when it's not, pretending you're fulfilled or finding meaning. It's like, nah, that's not good enough. Like, you need to put in the effort to try and change things somehow.
Yeah, it's really hard to be real, man. I think it's like a lot of people say that everything that I say is so real and all that kind of stuff. It's not that it's real. It's just like, and I call it real talk sometimes. In the podcast, I used to always call it real talk because, unfiltered and kind of like, but that doesn't mean it's real. It's just the reality that I know, but it doesn't mean it's, I don't know, when people say it's real, it's almost like they're branding it in
Yeah,
a certain way.
you can be
It
as
doesn't
real as you
mean,
want, and then you meet a person who's like, "You're just a sheep. You don't understand how the government's manipulating." You're like, "Okay."
exactly right. So I think being real is almost like become a cool thing, cool hashtag keep it real kind of thing. But I think the message of being honest to yourself and being vulnerable and that it's okay to, I think that is something that is very lost. And it's not about feeling sorry for yourself, because I hear a lot of that as well. But I think the concept of being honest to yourself, and in doing so, sharing that honesty with others, is there's two things there. Like, it's easy to be down on yourself if you get honest, and you might start to get down on yourself, but actually sharing it with someone helps, I think, and helps to, it's very hard to do. Not everyone's willing to listen to someone complain about life and shit like that, but it's like, I'd rather do that than talk about, I don't know, Lord, some TV series or Netflix series or something. Like, I can hear that a lot. Like, I think I hear a lot of, especially on the Discords, I hear a lot of people debate about Star Wars lore or something, but it's only because there's other things that are better to debate about, but they'd rather not talk about that shit. It's easier to debate over the lore of some fucking made up.
Yeah, super obscure thing. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's easy, and I can hear it. It's easier, and it's almost like avoiding the real issues, and just having a debate with someone for debate's sake as well. Like, a lot of people start their sentences off with no. Yeah, I'll say something and they go, no, but no, and I'm like, stop it. Stop starting your sentences off with no, bro. It's really horrible for you. It's really not good for you. Like, I'm not trying to argue with you, or it's that thing about guys competing again. It's like, if you have a bad day and you've let someone know, it doesn't mean that someone has to all of a sudden say, oh yeah, I fucking had an even worse day, man. And it's like, sometimes that's not good.
That's funny. That is a really good point, because you could start off that same sentence with yes, and it wouldn't make a difference. You could just say yes, but blah 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 blah. But yeah, instead of starting with no, or even like okay, yeah, that's pretty fascinating. I've never thought of that. I'm gonna look out for that in future future Discord.
It's like, yeah, and it's like what you were saying with defining what you do for work and how it changes people's mentalities. So if you say no all the time as the first thing that comes out of your mouth, it's really tiring. Just stop doing it to yourself and to your friends, because it's like, it's a horrible vibe, because it makes it sound like you were biting at the bit to give someone a different viewpoint, which is really nice for sometimes, but not with everything that's being said,
Yeah.
And I have that other thing of when someone says to me that you should do this, you should do that. It's completely psychological, but if someone was to replace that word should with could, I instantly prick up and listen. But if it's like, you should do this, you should do that, you shouldn't do this, or you shouldn't, it's just like, man, like, just don't even use those words. It's a really simple shift. So
yeah, I think I like my default. I think if I had like zero inputs, or like I didn't think about it, I'd maybe have like a slightly negative personality, I think. But
you would?
Yeah, yeah, and I think it's well, at least when I was a kid, man, I sort of like age, like puberty through to 21. I was very in my own mind, and I'd get like anxious and just have sort of like spirals of negative thoughts. And I think one of the ways I got out of that was, one, doing things in the world. So sort of like we were saying, instead of just like thinking about something, actually just going to do it. like approaching a girl on the street. That was fucking horrendously nerve wracking for me. But I started doing it, and it was like, oh man, this is okay. I can actually do it. Like I'm not going to die, sort of thing.
Yeah.
But even nowadays, I would say like there's a little part of me where I need to remind myself like, hey, be positive. Start off the sentence with yes, because maybe the default for me would be to say no, or to be like, I find myself doing that with my brother sometimes, or like family members, and it's
Right.
instead I could just say something positive right at the start, and then give a whole spiel of why they're stupid and whatever they're thinking of doing is wrong. But
Yeah.
it makes a big difference to just have that like little positive thing at the start, I think.
Yeah, it's a big trap. It's a big trap because it's like when you're saying no a lot, you're not only just being argumentative, you're also being defensive. And the whole exciting thing about meeting like-minded people is that we tend to drop our guards a lot quicker. And when you meet someone that drops their guard a lot and you can comfortably drop your guard is when you have great conversations that actually could maybe plant seeds for something in the future. Whereas if you meet someone that's got the guard up all the time, that says no all the time, it's like treading water. It's like nothing that's going to come out of their mouths over the next half an hour is going to ever come back at you in future because it was just all shit.
Yeah.
So I think that whole concept of being vulnerable and open is where you want to be. It's a good vibe, and it's not necessarily safe, but it's challenging and can plant seeds without you even realizing it. Like you can have a conversation with someone that can come back at you later on and pay dividends.
Yeah, for sure, man. I think that's a good place to end it, dude. Is there anything you wanted to bring up? Anything you want to chat about?
No, man. I'm just I'm happy that you guys are doing what you're doing, and I'm fans of your work. So keep at it. Like it's really hard to do it these days. Like I've seen your videos and how it's not like you're getting that instant reach that the internet used to enjoy. When all of this was new. So it's a tough one, right? Because like we do want to get it out there. Like it's as cathartic as it is to just have a one-on-one like this. Something does feel good about quite a few thousand people or whatever listening to it.
Yeah, I try and mix it up. I'll take certain actions where I'm like, maybe this thumbnail I'll make like a little bit clickbaity, but not like within reason still. But
Yeah.
but then there'll be stuff like this where I'm like, I enjoy just chatting with Justin for like hours. Like I don't particularly care if it gets broadcasted all across the world to everyone who hears it, or like only a couple of people hear it. It's still good either way. I think finding that little bit of mix between the two. And no, I really do appreciate the kind words, man. And same here, man. I really enjoy the Monday morning rants. Just tuning in, hearing what's been going through your mind, man. Because it's unpredictable. I never know what you're going to come up with this the next week.
Yeah, me neither. I think that I was really upset when Vodafone used that byline, no plans, because I want to take that for my life. That no plans. But yeah, no, awesome talking to you, man. Let's do it again sometime for sure.
For sure. If anyone was interested in learning more about you or like tuning into what you're up to, is the YouTube the best place to go?
I really don't know. I don't really have the one central place, so I suppose if they just Google my name, they'll see whatever's sort of most viewed at the moment.
Actually, that'd be kind of fun. Like, what will the Google algorithm chuck up first? Will it be graphic design stuff? Will it be the cars? Will it be
I'm not
the
sure.
gaming
It could
stuff?
be this American dude who has the same name and he writes religious rock music. So.
Yeah, probably. All right, that's a perfect analogy. Awesome, man. Thanks so much, and let's do this again, dude. This is real fun.